everybody, this is Perch, and I know some other videos have addressed this, but I'm gonna. This is one of those cases where I'm just gonna say I'm gonna call bullshit a little bit because I'm not buying the story that is out, or at least the interpretation of it. So I'm talking about, this is the 2023 is the anniversary of Luke Cage, and there was a Luke Cage City of Fire book that was meant to come out by Hochi Anderson and Farid Karami on the art. And it was canceled. It was meant to come out December 29th, 2021, and it was canceled by Marvel. And then Marvel even has this kind of odd message up on their website saying this comic will not be released. It was canceled prior to its release date. It's nice that they leave this page and they update it so that it was canceled. But then they've got dead links for a bunch of their other comics going on right now. That's awesome. Anyway, this story reads this. The solicit was an all too relevant story rocks the Marvel U. And by the way, I want you to note as I'm reading the solicitation, a couple elements of it which date it a little bit for when it was made. And that's part of why I think this is bullshit meter has gone up. So the solicitation reads like this. When a black man is murdered by a police officer in New York City, Luke Cage is called to action. But what does a good man do when protecting the streets puts him at odds with his own people? A cadre of crooked cops called the Regulators are out to terrorize ordinary citizens. And with Daredevil, this is the Elektra version of Daredevil, determined to bring them down no matter the cost, and Mayor Fisk, Kingpin, equally determined to use him to tighten his grip on the city, it's up to Luke Cage to keep the city from completely going up in flames. Joined by an amazing lineup of artists, Farid Karami on number 1, Ray Anthony Height on number 2, and Sean Damian Hill on number 3, celebrated creator Hochi Anderson from King, a comic biography of Martin Luther King Jr., and Scream Queen, makes his Marvel debut with this ambitious, hard-hitting story unlike any you've seen in the 616. Change is coming, and it starts here. That's a solicit. So I want to draw a couple things to your attention real quick, just before we get into the rest of this. And that is that, I can't help but notice that this comic solicit is dated. And when I say dated, I mean Marvel did Devil's Reign a year ago, where basically Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, was removed as mayor, was found to be corrupt. And now, granted, this was December 29th, 2021. Okay, so not a couple months ago. So I messed myself up. This wasn't 2022. This is more than a year ago. Yeah, that's right, because 2022 was the anniversary of Luke Cage. See, now it's all coming back. Anyway, this it was very much set in a time period where the comics were changing, and by changing I mean they were upending the status quo from where it was at to kind of, Luke Cage becoming mayor. And that was the direction of Marvel. Matt Murdock coming back and working alongside Elektra in the same time period. So why that's all important is that typically when Marvel cancels books or when these things happen, one big reason is because they're moving in a different direction from the storyline in a major way. And this book featured 3 elements. Elektra Daredevil, Kingpin Mayor, and Luke Cage kind of street level hero, as opposed to the mayor, because he became the mayor after Wilson Fisk. And those 3, all 3 major characters in this thing were all dramatically changing their status quo about the same time this comic was being published. And they had a whole storyline and an arc for Luke Cage to take on this new role. And so I point that out because, what I'm about to get into is now the creator is, has a reason for why the comic was canceled. And in my mind, the reason I call bullshit on this is I think this comic was canceled because the events inside of it were radically different from where the comics were going at the time. Now, for what it's worth, you don't need to, please don't argue with me that, comics don't care about continuity, all the time. And, that doesn't mean anything. I agree with you. Comics often don't care about continuity, for sure. No doubt about it. However, Marvel often does stuff like this. They will take a comic, even a comic that's fairly far along, and they will delay it or kill it because it doesn't align with where the lineup is going. Particularly ones where you've got a somebody that they think is a novelist, somebody who has a bigger profile. And in this case, this story touching upon big events. I have my doubts. So now, what is this reason that the writer has given for why the comic was canceled? Well, fear of right-wing nuts led to the Marvel miniseries being canceled. And the news article, in this case from Screen Geek, but a lot of other people picked it up all over the place. I'm just reading you the Screen Geek version of it, but everybody went with this same story. It says, and this is hard-hitting journalism for sure, it appears that fear of right-wing nuts led to Marvel miniseries Luke Cage City of Fire being canceled. Who is their source? The writer. The writer is the source. There's no other source cited. In fact, there's even kind of a mention that Marvel didn't give comment. But the writer said, here's how the article goes. It's always disappointing when a comic book series ends up canceled. This was a case with the Marvel comic series Luke Cage City of Fire. Although the reason was unclear at the time, it turns out that Luke Cage City of Fire was canceled due to a fear of right-wing nuts. This was revealed by comic writer Ho-Chi Anderson, who spoke to CBR on the matter. He recalled the events that led to the series being canceled while he was midway finished with the third issue. And basically said, long story short, they, meaning Marvel, sat me down and said, we're canceling this book. We're afraid that the subject matter is going to be damaging for you. We don't want you to be attacked by right-wing nuts. Okay, so that's the reason given. And then there's been some other comments about it. They worried there was be blowback with the Kyle Rittenhouse lovers of the world or whatever, Anderson said, so they chose to take the cautious route. And then I will never do work for Marvel as anything other than the villain of the week wants to take over the world. I feel like we had opportunity to tell a story that had some real world relevance. The fact that it got shut down so quickly told me unequivocally this is not what they want. They don't want that at all. They just want safe material. So if they hire me again, that's what I'll give them. I'll give them safe material. But it's a shame because I feel like we had an opportunity to tell a story that would have had some relevance, and they would have been on the right side of history for being strong enough to tell the story. It's a missed opportunity. Okay, so between the lines here, Ho-Chi Anderson, is saying, he doesn't have, if they hire me again, doing this kind of interview where you basically call out Marvel for being cowards and say that they caved to right-wing nuts is a good way never to get a contract at Marvel again. And we'll see what happens. But look, I don't believe this for a second. I'm sorry, I just don't. And do I believe there are right-wing nuts out there? Sure. There's nuts of all varieties out there. No doubt about it. The thing I don't believe is that Marvel, a company that has published all kinds of, Psylocke or Betsy Braddock is gay now. So is Rachel Summers. So we're publishing a trans hero. We've got a pride issue. Like you're telling me that Marvel is suddenly going to go, no. I'm afraid. Look, do I believe that Marvel may have canceled this because they were a little concerned about, getting negative press on it? Because in this story, Luke Cage is basically hired to protect, the police that killed the guy. So he's in between this, he's hired to do a job, but the optics of it are bad, and that's the story you want to explore. Yeah, that would have been an interesting comic to see how it played out. Based on the comments of the writer, I have no doubt it would have been played out as, a very clownish version of evil police officers, attacking a victimized, street. I'm sure. I'm doubting there would be a lot of subtlety in this thing. And there are bad police officers, no doubt about it. There's good police officers, bad police officers. There's good people on the street. There's bad people on the street. Fine. But I highly doubt this comic would have had a lot of nuance. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it was a masterpiece. But the idea that Marvel would go, hey, we're afraid this will be damaging for you. We're afraid that there's some right-wing nuts out there that might object to the story. Bullshit. They publish stuff all the time that gets people mad. In fact, Marvel trolls people. by talking about this comic's going to make all the right people angry. You're telling me that suddenly they're going to turn around and go, "Whoa, hang on, this comic's going to make the right people angry, but maybe a little too angry. Let's pump the brakes on this one." No, I don't buy it at all. I think it's a combination of maybe the story optics are like, "Ooh, this is just going to get us a lot of publicity and probably not good kind." I mean, or they read the story and be like, "This thing is about as subtle as a brick, and this is just going to get us panned." But most likely it's, "Hey, we're doing Devil's Reign. The characters are all going to a different spot. And do I really want a bunch of attention and press around a version of events and characters that we're in the midst of changing?" Yeah, that's the reason. That one right there. It's not these other things. My belief is that this writer is pissed off at Marvel and basically went and gave an interview, which amounts to, I tried to do something thoughtful and and powerful and relevant at Marvel, but those pussies caved to a bunch of right wingers, and so now fuck them. Therein is what actually went down with how this writer is. I don't know. I've had a bunch of people write me going, "Do you think this is true or not true? That this is, do you think he was actually?" No. Again, you would have to believe. I always like to do these things, and when you hear these stories, you're like, "Do you think it's true or not?" I always play the, what do I have to believe in order for this to be true? In this case, what I have to believe is Marvel is concerned about how the a Twitter audience is reacting to their comics. And every other indication of what Marvel does shows that they do not give a single fuck what the Twitter audience thinks of what they do. So I think there are other things under the surface. Granted, the editor may have called him up and told him this, that like, "Hey, we're worried about a blowback and all this kind of stuff." But underlying this, if this was a great kind of Watchmen level, detailed, involved story, they would have printed it. I think it's a timing issue, and I suspect probably wasn't as nuanced and thought-provoking and everything else as maybe the writer would have us believe. But I may be wrong about that. In fairness, I have not read some of his other stuff, so he could be amazing. Very, very likely he could be. But no, Marvel's like, "Hang on, we can't offend the right wingers." Yeah, you got to Trump MODOK. I'm sorry. I think you're okay with offending the right wingers. But one interesting way to look at this, if true, then it does call into question a lot of these people who do the videos of like, "Marvel deliberately shits on Republicans." It's like, no, see, Marvel's looking out for you, I guess. I don't know. In the right hands, a story where Luke Cage, hero for hire, has to do a job that is, causes him to question his kind of what he's doing. Yeah, potentially interesting, for sure. But that's what I think. What do you think? Do you buy this story? Honestly, do you think this is on the level? Do you believe this is legit? I don't. I just no. But maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Again, I'm doing this video with I mean, Ochi Anderson. It's very possible this guy is got a long track record for being as honest as a driven snow. I've read a lot of these interviews with creators who are who no longer have books at Marvel, and they always have some kind of pissed off thing to say. Whether it's Cena Gray's like, they never cared about gay people. It's like, they gave you a dozen issues, and some of them were some of the worst written comics I've ever read. Gabby made some comments. So just some of these people making comments like, "Marvel never supported me." It's like, man, yeah, Marvel backed you way more than other companies would have. So I don't know. That's my spidey sense going off. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.